Hey, Radeon. Hey, everybody. This is Ned Talks with Radeon again. We're going to be talking today about mortgage rates and just some general news that's happening. Looks like we've got some records.
Yeah. Hey, what's going on, man?
What have you heard so far, and how do you think it's going to affect you and your local market, man?
All right. So first of all, the way I keep track of the rates, I look at this website called Mortgage News Daily. A bunch of brokers have recommended it to me, so I just signed up for their daily email,
Yeah,
and they just send me one email a day, and then I look at the rate there, and then that's about it. Right? I don't look at like the ticker or anything like that.
I just use the phone app. They've got an app, and you could just click on it, and it's there. It's live.
Yeah,
It's
yeah,
a
yeah.
live feed. So,
Yeah, I mean, I feel like it's not. I guess it is worth looking at it like multiple times a day, but I think like once a day, I think it's more than enough, right? Even that might be too much.
yeah, for me, it's I just don't want more emails.
Yeah, I just want less apps, so that's why I have that. I'm trying to bare bones my phone, but yeah. So today, it's September 27th, 2023. The rate was about 7.5. It's
7.51.
Yeah, 7.51. Yep, and it's I think it's a record for like the last 20 years or so.
Yeah, yeah.
So for my side, it doesn't really change much. I include it into my spreadsheet. It calculates my payments, and the way I negotiate will probably change. Like I can ask for just overall lower, but one benefit of it for me is that there's a lot less people out there that are trying to buy properties, especially
Sure,
duplexes.
sure.
So that's a good thing that how I see it.
How do you think? So as far as deals in your market, there's less competition in theory. Do you feel like it's going to bring prices down, or have you seen any of that in your area?
No, not at all. Single family homes, they're still going over asking in my area. And multifamilies, so small multifamilies from like twos, threes, and fours, they're some of them, if they're underpriced, they still go over asking. And if they're in really bad shape, they might go a little bit under, but only like a few thousand, like not more than like 10 or 20,000. So definitely not nothing with prices, but it's also because there's there's like zero supply in my market. There's like two multifamilies in the whole market for sale, and single families there's like five or between 5 and 10. So there's very few, and the demand is still up there. So
Yeah.
I don't see the prices going down anytime soon, especially here.
Do you so one of the things that I've found that I've ran into a lot recently talking with friends and family and stuff is I'm I'm hearing more and more often, oh well, I'm just not going to buy a house now because 7%
Yeah,
or seven and a
rates
half
are
percent
high.
or eight is just too high, and I can't and I just can't see myself paying that much to a bank.
Yeah.
Um, and it's in my mind, I'm kind of like, well, how do you look at that first? Yeah,
Well, I used to be that person.
yeah,
Look at the rate and like, oh, rates are too high. I'm not gonna even look.
mm,
But now I mean, for most people have to look at the payment, right? See if
sure,
the payment
sure.
works for them. So if you're buying a single family home where you're gonna live in it yourself, then just look at the payment. If you can afford the payment, then that's it. You don't even
So
need
you would just
to know
compare
about the rent.
payment to rent.
Yeah, yeah, pretty much, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, and it's interesting because if I run the numbers on properties in New Orleans, what I tend to see is if you are coming in with a low down payment, like
Hmm.
what's typical, I think the average down payment, I want to say last I heard is around 10-11% or something like that. So
Okay.
it's actually not as common as you would think to do the full 20. But if you do a lower down payment on, like, let's say a duplex,
Hmm.
your rent's nowhere near helping cover the note. Whereas if you do the full 20, you're actually closer. So I don't think most of the people that are buying rental properties are doing small down payments in my area anymore. There's no way they don't cash flow at all. Is that similar for you, or are your values a little different?
Well, for me personally, I've put for the last two properties, I've put a 15% down
Hmm.
for both of them. And my most recent one has a note covered by just one side, so that would work.
Oh, yeah.
Now, if someone is going to put 3.5% down, which is the lowest possible, right? If they go with an FHA, then it's still going to work as a duplex, like a standalone duplex with you not living there. It's still going to cash flow a little bit, but it's not going to be, anywhere
Yeah.
close to the more money you put. But then you just
And
have to
that's if
look at your
someone's doing,
spreadsheet,
and
see
that's
what
if
the return
someone's
is.
That's if someone's doing FHA. You have to live in it the first year, but then it'd be harder to move out of it, is what you're saying.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So same as me, it's my loan is it's still owner occupied. So I lived in
Mm.
this property for 1 year, and then I was able to do that again, 15% down, owner occupied. So I still have to be there for 1 year at the new property, or I can just refinance and buy
That's
the
the way to
next
do it. My wife and I have moved. We're we're about to do our ninth move in
one. Whoa, it's a lot.
8 or 9 years. So
That's about once a year, right? Yeah, that's well,
yeah.
it seems to be going that way for me now. So we lived in this property for 1 year, and
Mm.
then as soon as we hit the 1 year mark, we moved on to the next one, and hopefully in a year we'll do it again.
Well, unfortunately, the way that it worked for me was, since I haven't always been a real estate 100% I've always been a real estate guy, but I've never, this is my first phase of my life that I've been 100% focused on it, because I look back and realized if I had not tried to start all these businesses and things like that that were different,
Yep.
then I would have done a lot better.
Uh,
But,
same as me, honestly. Yeah.
yeah, my main thing was I think four of the moves were for house hacks, and maybe it was three. I have to look back at it, but I think it's four. And then a couple of those were apartments that I lived in. But a lot of the apartments were, hey, I've hit my 1 year mark. I can move out, get this unit rented, and I can prove the cash flow higher, so I can do a 3 to 6 month lease and then qualify to move to the next, which was
Ah, okay.
even more moving than you would even normally consider. So I was kind of like, all right, well, how do I bolster my balance sheet so that I can then have enough cash flow across all my assets to then qualify for maybe a bigger or better, a building in less worse shape, you
Yeah.
know?
So you did midterm rentals basically for
Yeah, well, on
okay.
one of them, I straight up just broke my lease because the deal was so big, or the upside in the deal was so big, and it was
It
such a
just
home
made
run that
sense.
I was just like, screw it, and lost my deposit. I'm sure the
Mhm.
landlord was pissed because I think yeah, I lost I think my deposit was only half rent, so it was only $1,500. It wasn't the worst thing in the world, but
Yep.
I mean, $1,500 is still $1,500.
Yeah, yeah.
Would you ever consider doing something like that, where I mean, would your wife even let you? Is the question?
Well, she would. I mean, I'll she's
Yeah,
basically gonna do whatever I do, right? She's like on the same boat, but
It-
we also have a baby now, so I don't really want to do that. It's
yeah,
probably not fun moving with a baby, like from
yeah.
one place to another. So I would probably say no. But one question I would have there for you is, do you need to actually be moving out of one of your units? Let's say if you have a quad, right, and you live in one of the units, if you're trying to qualify for the next one, won't the lender just look at it as if it's 4 units bringing in cash instead of looking?
They would, but the unit I moved out of rented for so much, and then I moved into a unit that rented for less, so the
I
delta on the
see.
cash will let me build up more cash between there and the next move.
Okay.
So I was looking at how do I build up more cash faster.
Hmm.
Um,
Okay, I
and
understand.
we have off seasons in renting in New Orleans, so I knew if I moved um when the deals were going to be there, I like to hunt for deals during the off season. So between Thanksgiving and Mardi Gras, or most places it would be
For me, it'd be during the cold winter months. Yeah.
yeah, but those times, no matter what market you're in, when things are down,
Mhm.
that's when I've gotten historically the most of my really good deals, because stuff doesn't move when it sits there on the market for a while, and some sellers need their deal to sell,
Mhm. Yeah, yeah.
and
So
that's
when you
when
say
I
you're hunting for deals, are you saying you're looking for off-market deals or whatever is on the market and you try to work with those?
Um,
Both.
it varies. I'm kind of I don't know what you would call it, but I've done enough deals now to where local realtors kind of, if I call around and let people know I'm shopping, they know
Hmm.
that I'll do a deal. And in New Orleans, at least, it's probably similar in a lot of other states, but I know some states it's illegal to do both sides of the deal, and so
Okay.
realtors will have what are called pocket listings. So like, hey, this isn't on the market yet, but it's coming down. Like, are you interested? And they can just get it sold right as the seller is ready to go. So it almost never, it basically almost doesn't hit the market, and they get both sides, so they make 6% instead
I
of 3.
see. Okay.
Um, so yeah, I've kind of, so basically in my mind was, if I move out and I'm renting, I can shop. Um,
Hmm.
but that means my unit will rent. Whereas if I had moved out of it during that down season, I would have had
Hmm.
that vacancy.
Yep.
And
Yep.
I didn't want to deal with a vacancy for 3 or 4 months or however, because that would cost me way more than the $1,500 I would have lost from the deposit or whatever. So in my head, the math made sense, but obviously moving all of my stuff
Yeah.
twice was such a pain. But we got to live in like a cool place downtown in a new building that was having trouble leasing during COVID. So
Yeah.
it's just like super cool garage that they converted
Like a
uh,
loft.
into lofts, and they couldn't figure out the parking. So there was like an elevator that you would bring your car into, and it bring you to your floor,
Oh,
and you
wow.
would walk.
Nice.
So that was neat, but I would never pay the real market rent on that. They couldn't rent it during COVID, so rent was like half of what it should have been. And I was kind of like, this is fancy and fun. And then after a while, I was like, bringing my huge pickup truck into a car elevator is a huge pain in the butt.
Yeah. Yeah, so going back to the rates, I think the only way that I would be able to move within this one year, owner occupied period, is if I refinance. So if I this property, if I add like some crazy value into it and then refinance, then that would make sense. But there's not much I can do to that property, especially since
Yeah.
it's almost turnkey, So there's
So you
unless
would,
I add like a unit to it, which it can be done potentially.
oh, like an ADU.
Well, it's one of the units, as you know, it's a large 5 bedroom, 2 bath, so I can turn those into 2 units, 3 bedroom and 2 bedrooms. But
And
I
the
would need
zoning allows
permission
that?
from the city. They're like on the fence right now. They're working to changing the zoning for units like that because of housing shortage, all that. So they're trying to rewrite the books for that. So if that happens, then my property would become a triplex, and I wouldn't mind going with a higher rate if the value goes up like I don't know 50 to 100K, then I can
Yeah.
refinance and then do it again.
Is there a chance that they'll redo that so that you'll be able to do like an ADU and the extra unit? Because that would be crazy if you could just do 2 units
I don't
instead of
think they will
4.
do that. Yeah, what they're doing for the ADUs is they're only allowing it for single family homes. So and you have to be an owner occupied. So you have to live in the property of that single family, and then you can have an ADU there. But if you have a duplex, you cannot add an ADU to it.
Okay. So, but that does change the calculus when you look at properties. You could find a single family with a cool size lot and then add in or like convert a garage or something like that.
I did think of that as well. However, I'm not sure what happens if I were to move out then. I don't think I can rent out both of those units. I think I can only rent out one because of the owner occupied rule with
Uh,
those. So yeah, it's just the weird things that cities do.
so it's not like it's you're allowed to have an ADU while you
If
live
you live
there,
there. Yep.
but it's not you live there, you can add an ADU and then leave and out to duplex.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Okay.
That's not how it works. So
Okay. So another bit of news that I didn't bring up that I'm curious how you respond to is apparently, and I don't know how true this is, but I saw it in an article. Warren Buffett bailed on his final REIT, so he's out of real estate. But I was kind of like,
together.
apparently that was his last real estate
Hmm.
focused like ownership, because I guess he probably owns a bunch of property, a bunch of businesses that supply stuff to
Yeah,
building
well,
real
he
estate.
indirectly owns a lot of real estate. That's
But as far as REITs and owning income properties, it sounds like he sold out of his final fund or business. I don't
hmm,
know whether it was bought into a private REIT or what it was. I didn't get
interesting.
that deep into the article. So when Buffett starts making moves out of real estate, I start thinking, what's going on here?
Yeah, see, I'm not sure what to think of that. The only thing I would think is that he's probably pulling back so that he can pull back in at some point in the future,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah, he is a little bit more of a trader than most of us are. Although
Yeah.
if it's easy trading into a stock versus into a portfolio now.
Yeah, yeah. And he's not like, he's not in our level, obviously. Like he's not like doing rehabs or and things like this. So, yeah, yeah. I'm not sure what do you think of that? What do you think is going on there?
It's interesting because I come back to the same thing where he's looking at I know he's not a huge fan of debt. If you've seen his interviews,
Mhm.
he talks about how debt can make anyone look like a genius, but I can't remember what the second half of that quote is, but his other quote is we'll find out who's wearing their swimsuits when the tide goes out.
Mhm. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, who's
Yeah,
swimming
I've heard
naked.
that.
Yeah, so that's
He likes real estate too. Like I've heard him in interviews where he compares like Bitcoin, I think, with real estate. He's saying like, oh, real estate, it's there. I can touch it. I can see it. If it's like a single
yeah.
family or whatever, right? So I don't think he's against real estate, but yeah, I mean
I
he's
think I think he's
Warren Buffett.
against debt. And if you look at most debt structure from his perspective, he's not looking at single family residentials. So the way commercial debt tends to be structured is it's 3, 5, 7, or 10-year fixed, and then a balloon. So you have this
Yep.
huge amount of risk when you've got to do your refi.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
and on smaller portfolios like you and I have, I think the highest number of units in a building I've ever seen is 49 unit. I think it was 49 unit from Mark Zuber's channel from maybe Convoy Mortgages at one point during the pandemic was doing 49 units, 30-year fixed rate mortgages.
Wow.
And
Why
I have
49?
never,
Why not
I
48?
don't know. It was weird. And then as the market got worse, they were like, oh, well, now it's 32. And they kept lowering the number of units. So it was very strange. So most of the time, the bigger commercial properties, you're kind of on a floating rate. So you've got all this exposure to whatever the Fed is doing. And so commercial debt is super risky as far as I'm concerned. And it's probably as far as you. I like being locked in. I know my payment for
Yeah.
until it's gone.
Mhm.
So I
Well, as far as I know, like the only way that I would consider commercial debt, it's if like the balloon is I would say like 10 years, right? I think
yeah,
we've talked about this before. And then within those 10 years, if I have a high rate, I can try to refinance into a 30.
yeah,
That
yeah,
way I would do it, but I wouldn't keep that for the whole life of it and then
yeah.
the
I've got
balloon.
a 20 unit and it's got a full 20-year amortization with no balloon. And the only way that I was able to get that was I paid more in interest to a local bank and they let me lock it in for the life of the mortgage during COVID. They would
Okay.
not do that deal again. But my agreement was that I wouldn't pull any cash out of it.
Okay.
But so I missed out on having a lot of liquidity. But in my mind, the risk of having a balloon is way scarier than
Yeah.
just locking it in for a while. And
Yeah, definitely.
I've heard that changes as your portfolio grows because you can kind of cross collateralize and do a bunch of
Mhm.
fancy, crazy financial
Yeah.
engineering. But I don't know.
Yeah,
Anyway,
I'll stick to 30 years for now. Fixed.
yeah, certainly is safer, a lot more peace of mind.
Yep.
Well, I think that's it for the video today. Everybody give Radion a follow. Go over to his channel, Landlord Odyssey, and thanks for joining us.
Thank you.